Welcome to New Stripe City, a YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and I'd like to welcome back my co-host, G. G, what's going on?
Hey, nothing much. Happy to be back. Glad to talk about the Bengals for another year.
Definitely, definitely. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for G to come back. We're going to catch up, starting off with some of the things that happened in the off season, and then we'll kind of start to move into the regular season and look forward. So, G, I got to get your opinions on some of the off-season moves that happened, such as Pac-Man being released, such as George Iloka being cut. What was really going through your head when some of those moves happened?
Well, when Pac-Man got released, first of all, I was happy. I mean, I had my ups and downs and feelings towards Pac-Man, but I think overall getting rid of him is kind of like starting a new era. Like he's the end of an old era and like let's get the secondary back to where we wanted to be. But I mean, he gave us some good games. He gave us some heartaches off the field, but overall, I'm happy he's gone. Like I said, starting over a new league. But Georgia Loca, that one really surprised me. I didn't understand what we were doing with that one. I still am not 100% clear, but at the same time, I get your new players like he's the third.
Jesse Bates the third.
Yeah, so like those, I mean, yeah, we're okay. We're clearing out. We're getting a younger group of guys in there, so I kind of get it. And I do like the move bringing in Preston at linebacker. So even though he didn't play last game, but yeah, no. Overall, at first I was just like George Lucker, why are we getting rid of him? But I think they were pretty good moves
Right.
to make us have a fingers crossed the better future.
Right. So, what was your thoughts? Obviously, you're not a huge Marvin Lewis fan. So,
No.
what was going through your head when we brought Marvin Lewis back, and what's going through your head now that those moves have been made, and we've kind of seen some of the effects of those moves?
Oh, I was just like, oh, okay, we're just going to accept mediocrity for a few more years is what we're going to do. Because in my head, it's just like Marvin Lewis gets us to one place, and like he brought us from a low place, but it's like he can't get over that hump. So I felt like by us continuing to keep him, we were just always going to stay where we were. But I will say that after watching Thursday's game, especially, I really felt like a new energy, like something I haven't felt watching the Bengals game in a long time, where it's like, oh, we looking good, but we could always mess it up the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. But it was just like, to me, it was like a feeling like, nah, like I really think they got this. And so I'm just like, well, maybe Marvin got it together finally after like what, 12 years? Like maybe he finally figured it out, but we'll see. I know we're only week 2, but I guess I'm all right until, of course, he messes up again. But you know,
Right. I was definitely with you on that. I think like as soon as we re-signed Marvin, and it was crazy because it was like not only did Marvin leave, he re-signed for 2 years, not even just 1 year, but 2 years. And like my immediate reaction was to just go on here and just start going off. But one thing I will say is like a lot of those changes, it kind of really reminded me of 2010, right? When Marvin was a free agent before last time and he kind of negotiated some certain things that needed to be changed in order for him to come back. I felt like a lot of that happened, especially when we saw Pac-Man, who we knew was Mike Brown's like number one guy, just immediately let go. We saw moves that were made, like Bodine getting up out of there. We saw a lot of the coaches that a lot
coaching.
of people weren't fond of that got out of there. Like Paul Alexander was finally let go. I mean, I wasn't a huge Paul Gunther fan either because it
Nope.
was like he played a whole bunch of zone, didn't really try to blitz and things of that nature. Was glad to see us move along away from him. Was
Thank you.
glad to see Marvin Lewis be aggressive and go after like some actual top flight coaches like Frank Pollock. Like that was what was amazing to me was I feel like the most underrated move was obviously he went to the Cowboys, who by most people believe that they had the best offensive line in the league, and was like, we just gonna go ahead and take y'all coach and bring him to Cincinnati.
I mean, you
So
can
to
already
me,
see the difference. It's amazing.
It's definitely different. And I think even like you talked about Preston Brown earlier, like the fact that we actually went and signed a linebacker in free agency that was not 35 and was 25 in his prime spoke volumes. It was like, come on. And also, we're also Ohio State fans. It felt good to see us finally go into the draft and say, hey, this guy was pretty good at Ohio State. He's in our backyard. Why don't we make him a Bengal? And we did that with 2 players this time.
I mean, I like you said, it was easy to get upset about Marvin being back, but in the bigger scope of things, you see the changes you're making. We're starting over. We're creating a younger team overall, which is like, yes, like you said, we don't need no more 35-year-old linebackers or even old linemen either at that. So, yeah, and that offensive line, Gunther being gone though, also already making mistakes in Oakland. But anyways, I'm really happy he's gone too. But yeah, the offensive line move, they look great. I mean, they look a lot better than last year. Let me not overhype.
And I was also surprised, like Brandon LaFell getting cut like super early. I was like, wow.
I forgot about that, but also when you watch the development of Tyler Boyd, it's kind of like, well, I mean, hey,
right,
he's kind of making moves. He's had a few pretty good games so far. So, and I honestly like LaFell. I respect him as a receiver, but he wasn't the greatest for us, as I would say, for like New England.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, like the only thing that shocked me with that was we've had so many years with Marvin Lewis, and I don't know if it's a Marvin Lewis thing, I don't know if it's a Mike Brown thing, where we've like kept playing these older guys that are washed up over young players and draft picks. I think back to Domata Peko. Like, why was he still like starting?
Yeah.
Like if this was the typical Marvin Lewis kind of year, we would have seen Vinny Ray out there these last 2 games, like starting, like, and it wouldn't have made like any sense. So the fact that they were like, let's get rid of Brandon LaFell, and like you said, Tyler Boyd is obviously developing. Let's put him in there. Let's get John Ross in there. Was just so different from what we were used to in previous years. And I think that maybe last year with some of the emergence of guys like Joe Mixon and Carl Lawson, I think maybe that kind of helped kind of change the thinking in the room. Like, hey, we need to play some of these younger guys that are talented before they get into their last year of their contract and we don't know what to do with them.
Right. Or we don't want to pay them either.
Right. Right.
But yeah, no, it's a new energy I'm feeling, and I like it. I think we're going in the right direction. So I can see what was behind the moves they made.
Right, I definitely do, and I think you kind of touched on it with talking about the Thursday night game. We can kind of segue into that, but I think you said it. There's a new energy that's kind of out there. Like, when was the last time that we've had a primetime game where we've come out and not made any mistakes? Like to me, it just seemed like we were playing the reverse roles. Like we would have been the Ravens coming out like too slow. They would have jumped on us, punched us in the mouth. We were ready for a primetime game at home on a short week. I have never in Marvin Lewis era ever seen that happen. It was just like, is this like a dream or something?
Like,
right.
I wasn't screaming. I was pretty chill. And I'm just like, what? What is like, I'm confident in this win. Like, not only do I think we can pull it out, like I'm pretty confident we will. Like, I'm not worried about it. It was good. And then even like, well, like my mom and I have this thing we always text during Bengals games. So her first text message to me was like, so AJ Green just breaking tackles and getting touchdown like from jump. And I'm just like, even AJ's being more aggressive. And like, it was good to see. So I'm hoping we can keep this theme the whole season.
Right. And usually like in the past, you've seen like, even if we get up on teams, like we'll start to switch to something super conservative, or we won't put, 2 halves of football together. Going back, I know I said we were going to talk about the second game, but the first game, the thing that stuck out to me that was like glaringly different than previous years was the fact that Marvin made second half adjustments. Like,
okay.
From a guy who claimed that they did not exist into being a guy that actually made them in the first game, I was just kind of baffled that actually happened.
No, I really appreciate it because, I mean, historically, I feel like the Colts always give us a hard time. for
really
whatever reason. But it just, and I didn't get to see the whole game because down here all I see is Falcons games, unfortunately. But the pieces that I did see, and especially like getting the second half stats, I'm just like, oh, okay. So we're gonna try to make some changes. We're gonna try to win this game. Okay, like I like this. So it was really a good feeling. Like we came back.
right.
Like it didn't look good for a little bit, but we fought for the win. Anybody can appreciate that. It was good seeing it.
Right. So one big injury that actually happened coming off of this last game against Baltimore was the fact that Joe Mixon kind of got hurt. And Joe Mixon has kind of been somewhat of the engine for this offense through the first two games. G, what are your thoughts on like how Mixon's absence will affect the Bengals going forward?
I really think it's definitely gonna impact us, especially when we get to Atlanta and playing that defense. Like I just feel like, of course, Giovanni Bernard is a decent back, but the load that Mixon has carried the past 2 weeks, I don't think that I don't think Giovanni Bernard is that type of runner anyway. He's not going to run downhill like that. So I don't think that he's going to give us the consistency that Joe Mixon has given us. Like he's looked pretty good these past few games, and I think that they're really going to miss that in the running game.
Like, yeah, I totally agree with you. And a lot of people, if you guys are new to CNG, G was my co-host back when I think it was last year, right? That was the first year that we did it. And she was really big on Joe Mixon coming out. She gave a great scouting breakdown on him. So it's not surprising to see that Joe Mixon is out here doing his thing now. And I think, like you said, the Bengals are definitely going to miss him. Giovanni Bernard, Gio is one of my favorite Bengals. Like, no matter what, he can do no wrong in my eyes. But I would be lying if I said that he was the same exact caliber of player that Joe Mixon is. Like, it's been night and day these first two games that they are not the same. They don't have the same type of impact. So one thing that I'm interested to see is, number one, can Gio get space in the running game? Number two, the Bengals also drafted a guy by the name of Mark Walton in the fourth round out of the University of Miami, which kind of threw a lot of people off because it was like, really, a running back after you already have Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard? Why are you taking one of these guys? And the Bengals tried to say that it was because in the event that something like this would happen. So my guess is that we are going to see a heavy dosage of Giovanni Bernard and a little bit of Mark Walton as well. What did you think of Mark Walton? I know you watch a lot of college football. I'm not sure if you're too familiar with him, but do you think that he can bring anything to the table?
Well, I definitely do watch a lot of college football, but I don't really remember too much about Walton. I think that if he's not going to be a downhill runner like Joe Mixon is and to have that style, I think it's going to be hard for Gio and him to kind of tag team as far as in the backfield. I just feel like Joe Mixon is just well, let me say it like this. I think that Gio Bernard is more of a sideways runner. Like he bounces in and out of tackles, but I don't think that he's going to run straight downhill like Joe Mixon can. And I think that's what benefited our offense for these past two games. Like that's what our offensive line, they're looking better for things like that, creating space for a running back, creating holes. And those aren't the same holes that Gio's going to use. So it's like your offensive line is going to have to make some sort of adjustment for these new or different type of runners. I don't know if that's going to happen in these next 2 to 4 weeks for Joe Mixon. So it's unfortunate that he's gone.
Right, definitely. And I have to give us a brief moment to celebrate the Squealers losing to the Chiefs. So they are now 0-1-1. Yeah, I'm loving that. That's great for us.
And we are now what? We're on top of the division.
2-0 on top of the division. I mean, wow, that's crazy. That's pretty crazy. I don't think anybody expected that to be the start of the season for us.
I was pretty nervous. I mean, as I'm sure most fans were, we're nervous about Thursday night.
Right. Definitely. So in terms of looking forward, G, like I know also we touched on John Ross a little bit, and me and you both weren't really liking him. But what do you see for John Ross going forward? Obviously, it looks like he's kind of turned it around. Still struggled a lot in the Thursday night game, but at least started the season off with a touchdown. What do you think that John Ross can bring to the table?
I mean, I'm still trying to get him wrapped around my head that he's a part of this offense. Like I still feel like I'm missing something because everything that I mean, we have AJ Green, then you have people like Boyd who are developing, and we have these tight ends who are great too. So I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out where John Ross is going to fit in. Because then if you look at it, we're also making these short, quick passes to Geo and Mixon. So it's like, so where do you put John Ross in? And I think that's why he's not showing up as much as I think he could be in the stats, because I don't know if he's fitting in well with the offense. And I don't know how he will.
I have to agree with that. I think you made a great point there. Like outside of that first touchdown, which was just kind of like a fluke, I'm going to throw it in the red zone to him. They really didn't have a package for John Ross. And this last game, it seemed like they had maybe one or two plays, but I totally agree with you. It seems like the other guys have kind of fit into this offense, and they're just trying to squeeze John Ross in where they can. But hopefully, with Mixon being out, that has to open the door for some more plays to go to him. Hopefully, let's hope that that's the case. But the good thing we can say is now he's actually playing. He's actually on the field, getting snaps. So I think, like you said, and he's healthy. We just have to, like you said, figure out what role he can have going forward.
And it may not even just be him. It might be Andy not comfortable with him yet, or whatever that might be too. So
right. That's very valid. That's very valid. I'm just glad that now we can also talk about Andy, because I've kind of been on different sides of the spectrum when it comes to Andy. I've been on the Andy Dalton is trash to the I'm going to give Andy his props. He balled out. He's a decent quarterback. So where are you on that spectrum now with Andy Dalton? What are your thoughts?
I feel the same way. Like I just feel like it's on a we're hanging on. He had a few decent games, but ain't no telling what next week's gonna bring. Like that's the type of player I think he's been. Like it's very rare where it's just like, oh, Andy's good. Like Andy's got it in the bag. Like I feel like you can't really say that. Like we're not sure what you're gonna get. But thus far he showed some good composure as far as like, especially week 1 when he came back against the Colts. And I mean, just kind of consistent in Thursday night's game where he just kept going. Like we didn't, no interceptions, no meltdowns, no nothing, like finishing out the game. So far, so good.
Right. I definitely understand where you're coming from. Like sometimes with Andy Dalton, you have to hold your breath. And I think one clear example of what we kind of think of Andy Dalton is he comes out in the first half, throws 3 touchdowns, right? Then in the second half, he almost throws an interception, and Tyler Boyd's like running to the guy to like swat it out of his hands from it being an interception. I think that's what you get from Andy Dalton is you never know, like as soon as you get comfortable with him and you're like, okay, he's beasting, the next thing you know, it's like an interception. Like even in the first game, when we came out, he had the interception. He played a good game in the first game, but he came out with, he just has these little like lapses where he'll just throw like an interception or something bad will happen. And he either reacts one of two ways. I think history has said that in the past, usually when he messes up like that in the bad years, it continues to be a bad game. In 2015, I think you saw him have a lot of mental strength and he was able to bounce back from plays like that. And I'm hoping that's what we're going to see this year, because even though he hasn't really had too many interceptions the last 2 years, it still hasn't been enough to get us to that level. It's been things or plays where balls have been thrown out of bounds on 4th down and on 3rd and when we need it and things of that nature. But hopefully, I'm thinking these first 2 games have told us that Andy Dalton is closer to 2015 than he was with 2012 Andy Dalton, where it was just interceptions all over the place and him not having confidence in himself. I definitely think that he has the confidence back with the offensive line being restored to where it needs to be at.
Yeah, he's got a little time now with the offensive line, so that might be the difference maker. But mental toughness. That's what Andy has to have throughout
Right.
the whole 60 minutes.
Right. And I think it's not like a lot of people are like people just hate on Andy. It's not that. It's just that you have a quarterback where you feel like if this guy can at least play at a top 10 level, if he at bare minimum gives us a top 10 performance, this team could go to at least by minimum the AFC Conference Championship. And I think that that's where a lot of it's not that we think that he's bad. It's just like, man, if we just had this guy play at a high level all the time, we'd be racking up the AFC championships. I mean, we're talking about a team like Jacksonville where Blake Bortles was able to get to an AFC championship and almost beat the Tom Brady and the Patriots. So, man.
I mean, well, yeah, like you said, he's shown us his potential. He showed us what he can do. It's just unfortunate that he can't hold that consistency level with that, and that's kind of his downfall. Almost like a Tony Romo, kind of.
Yes, exactly.
It's there. I know it's there, but you never quite get to show it.
Right, exactly. So moving forward, the Bengals have to go against the Carolina Panthers. We kind of have a break in between our last game, and then obviously Joe Mixon's going to be out. What are your thoughts on what the Bengals can do against Carolina? Do you think we have a good chance of winning that game? Is Cam going to overwhelm us? What are your thoughts on that game?
I think, and especially in looking at the game I just saw with them against the Falcons, the thing that I always think about with Cam Newton is Cam Newton knows how to fight back. So it's kind of like if we're in the first half and we get comfortable, like Thursday, and let's say we go up 4 touchdowns, like we can't take the foot off the gas for a team like Carolina. You can't do that for a team like Atlanta either. We have to push the gas for the whole 60 minutes. So that's the only thing that really worries me about Carolina. I mean, their defense hasn't been great, but again, Cam Newton is a fighter. Cam Newton's going to find a way to win. So we, as a defense, especially, needs to make sure we're on for the whole game and make sure he doesn't come back. Because I think our offense is going to score. Our offense will be fine, but defense has got to be strong.
Right. If my memory serves me correct, the last time we played this guy, I think we got to a point where we had the lead, and then he ended up bringing them back, and we tied against them.
Wasn't it at home?
I think it was at home.
I think I remember that game.
Yeah, and it ended up being a tie. But I think, like you said, Carolina, it starts and ends with Cam Newton. And I think we saw something similar to what we saw against the Colts with Andrew Luck. They're going to be in the game simply because of their quarterback. Cam Newton's going to make sure that they're a factor in that game. He's going to make sure that they're going to come out and make sure that they are doing whatever they can to beat us. And I mean, the last time we played Cam, he kind of went ham on us. I'm not even going to sit here in front. And the Bengals have somewhat struggled with guys that are somewhat dual threat. When you look at guys like Deshaun Watson, he didn't do anything against us in the past game, but then he had a 50-yard rushing touchdown. We can't let those plays happen with Cam, and we definitely have to make sure that we get with him and make sure that we are able to contain him, because if he goes Superman, then that's going to be a problem.
Absolutely. Like that. Yeah. So that's the biggest threat is really just Cam Newton himself. Because he's not going to just sit down and let us beat him. Like we definitely have to go out and fight for that win.
Right. And nothing against
Carolina. So
it's in Carolina too. So we're going on the road. And I mean, I think if you match up the two teams, I think we have more talented players.
Yeah.
Outside of Cam Newton, I think another person that could potentially give us problems, and he just reminds me a lot of Danny Woodhead, is Christian McCaffrey. Like I still have nightmares of Danny Woodhead getting off on us in that playoff game, like him just slashing and getting away from us. Even last year in the first game when he was on the Ravens, he was still getting off on us. But I think he could be a guy that could give us issues. But I'm not sure. I know Vontaze Burfict. Everybody in the chat is talking about Vontaze coming back. I'm not sure if he's coming back next game or the game after. Is he coming back next game?
Isn't it? It's 3 games, right?
I don't know. Maybe you guys can let us know in the comments whether it's 2 or 3 games. But if Vontaze is coming back, That's gonna be wild because the last time I remember Vontez was going against Cam, there was that whole drama where he like twisted Cam's ankle. So
Oh
that would
yeah,
be
I
that's the
love
only
Montez Burfict. It's one of my favorites.
Montez is definitely like I think he gets a bad rap just because he's had
His
those
history.
plays. Yeah, he's had his history. That also scares me though because it's like the
He's
fact
got a
that
4-game suspension.
4 game suspension. Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's what also scares me because it's like with them being so delicate with quarterbacks and these new rule changes, I feel like they're going to try to target him. And if there's any kind of hit that he makes that they're like, I don't know, they're going to try to throw him out the game.
Absolutely. No, for sure. And it sucks. Yeah, he's definitely one of those players that they're always going to have to, they always keep their eye on. So, I mean, and then, then you have Cam Newton, so he doesn't make it easy either. So,
Right.
he almost talks you into it.
Right. I actually saw earlier in that Cam Newton game that there was a very similar hit that was like Sean Williams where he hit Andrew Luck and got ejected. It was like literally the same hit.
Yeah.
If we have any of our players hit him like that, they're definitely throwing him out, which is a change from the past because there's been a lot of people that say that Cam Newton doesn't receive that same treatment as like an Aaron Rodgers and a Tom Brady when it comes to getting hit because he would get hit in the head and all kind of, and I guess people would chalk it up to, hey, he's bigger, he can take those hits. But at the end of the day, he's still a quarterback. So we do know that they are calling that now, and the Bengals are going to have to be cautious when it comes to how they hit Cam Newton.
Absolutely. I hope they've been talking to Vontez. Well, I guess he won't be playing in this one, but that's definitely something he needs to be meditating on in this
Right.
in the suspended period.
Right. So, G, we didn't get your prediction for the season, but what is your, like, if you had to give your record prediction for the season, what do you think the Bengals finish as?
I see us going 10-6, but I see that 10-6 being the top of our division too.
Nice. So you had the Bengals winning the division at 10-6.
Yeah, I definitely see that in us. I know we're gonna have a few games we're struggling on, so we do have some heavy games on the road. But I think we'll have a winning season, and I think we'll finish at the top of the division as long as we stay healthy.
Right. I totally agree. Like this season starts off kind of brutal, and so far we've done good. So if we can get by this Carolina game, if we can get away with some kind of win in Atlanta, if we could possibly go 4-0 down this stretch, this team could end up easily at 10-6, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. Like and like it is 2 tough games coming up right off the bat, but I mean, I think we can do it. I think we could even do it in Atlanta. I'm hoping we can do it in Atlanta.
That's what I'm hoping too, because like I saw the report today that Devontae Freeman is out, and it said that he'll be out for a couple of weeks. I'm hoping that he's out for our game. Like,
me too.
We need him out. I think Deion Jones for them is already out. Keanu Neal is like on injured reserve, so they're already suffering from that injury bug a lot. So I'm hoping that it continues. Like sometimes you just need certain things to break your way, whether it's injuries or whatever it is. Like
seriously.
Like even with the last game with the Ravens, like CJ Mosley goes out after like 2 plays, like that saved us. That helped us a lot.
For sure. I mean, we're definitely gonna need it playing Atlanta, but again, it's a possibility. It's a possibility.
It's always a possibility with this team, like you said.
I know, right? Always that chance. You gotta wait till the clock hits 4 zeros every single time.
Right. You always have to proceed cautiously with this team. But G, that's all I have. Did you have anything else for anyone?
No, it's good talking about football.
Well, it's definitely good to have you back, and hopefully we can connect in the future when your schedule gets a little bit more clear. I know it's kind of busy for right now, but whenever we can connect, we can definitely just try to have you on whenever you can.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, as usual, I will leave you guys with a who day, all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.